Our wedding day was nearly perfect. A stunning winter-themed ceremony, pine garlands draping the venue, golden accents shimmering in candlelight, and even a magical snowfall send-off. Every detail was exactly how we envisioned it. My husband and I were over the moon, completely wrapped up in the joy of our new life together. Except for one thing, the look on my in-laws' faces. We have a picture of me walking down the aisle, beaming, while in the background my FIL looks like he's plotting my demise. My Mill wasn't in that particular shot, but multiple guests later confirmed that she had the same sour expression the entire day. They weren't just brooding from a distance, they straight up ignored us. No congratulations, no small talk. It was only by chance that we bumped into them as they were leaving our reception. My husband, being the petty king he is, extended his hand to his father, who stiffly muttered, "Congratulations," before turning away. His mother didn't even stop walking. She simply threw open the door, turned back just enough to sneer, "I hope you're happy." We had initially chosen both our mothers to light the unity candle at the ceremony, a tradition where two individuals, often the mothers of the bride and groom, each light a candle before the ceremony. Later, the couple uses those flames to light a third candle together, symbolizing their union. Ironically, when I first told my Mill, she acted completely disinterested, whining like I had to convince her to do it. But as the wedding approached, it suddenly became the most important thing in the world to her. We revoked her role in lighting the candle because she decided to wage an emotional war on my fiancé the moment she realized he was actually leaving home. During our entire engagement, Mill went into full meltdown mode. She insisted that we come over for dinner every other day despite us living separately with our families. If we didn't show up, she'd cry and guilt trip my fiancé, acting like we were abandoning her. That was just the tip of the iceberg. She was emotionally and verbally abusive, constantly berating him, nitpicking our wedding plans, and throwing tantrums whenever things didn't go her way. It was exhausting. The worst of it came after Christmas. My fiancé and I had some time off work, so we poured every spare moment into preparing our new home. This really set her off. One day, completely out of the blue, she sent my fiancé a text. "Just letting you know, we will not be hosting or paying for the rehearsal dinner. We will also not be able to attend." No discussion, no warning. My fiancé, to his credit, handled it well. He calmly replied, "That's okay, we'll handle it. We still want you to be there." Her response, "You don't want us there, you've abandoned your family, we're all heartbroken." The next day, my fiancé tried to go over to their house to talk things out. And what happened next was something else. My Mill literally ran up to my fiancé and started punching him in the chest, screaming that he was an effing jerk. My FIL quickly joined in, hurling verbal abuse at their own son. My fiancé, trying to keep his composure, attempted to explain how much stress they had put on us throughout our engagement and how he was doing his best to make the transition easier for them, which was ridiculous because he was still calling and checking in with them every single day. But they didn't want to hear it. Mill was too busy shouting that she was praying for us to break up, mind you. This was just 3 weeks before our wedding, and that she could object during the ceremony if she wanted to. Then she turned her rage onto me. According to her, I was a psychotic effing BTCH and a master manipulator who had plotted to destroy their family and rip her precious baby boy from her grasp. I mean the dramatics. She actually believed I had some grand scheme to steal her son away from her, as if, getting married wasn't a completely normal life event. And just to be clear, they never apologized. Not for what they said to my fiancé, not for what they said about me, nothing. That's when we both agreed that my Mill had no business lighting the unity candle at our wedding. She wasn't unified with us in any way, so why should she have that honor? 5 days before the wedding, they showed up unannounced at my fiancé's house. He had moved out a month prior, and my FIL actually told him, "If you let another woman light that candle, it will destroy your mother." Like what? My fiancé, trying to keep the peace, assured them that he wouldn't replace her, meaning we wouldn't ask another woman to step in. Our solution was simple. My mom would light both candles, that way it wouldn't draw attention to the fact that Mill wasn't up there. Apparently, that wasn't good enough. To this day, Mill still whines that my husband chose a new mom because he let my mother light the unity candle. We've explained over and over that we weren't trying to hurt her, we just did what we thought was best under the circumstances. But no, according to her, we're liars because we knew it would kill her. Mind you, we've been married for 9 months and we just tried to have another conversation with her about it. And guess what? It ended with her screaming at us, convinced we only did it to spite her. So now I'm left wondering, should we have just let her light the dumb candle? Honestly, no. My husband and I, along with everyone except my Mill and FIL, think we made the right call. If anything, looking back, I think we should have just uninvited them entirely. But would that have been too far? Probably not. And frankly, I think it's hilarious that she's still crying about this 9 months later. This woman has never been held accountable for her actions, and the irony is chef's kiss. Because now her own son and daughter-in-law are the first to tell her that the world does not revolve around her. And here's the kicker, we're expecting our first baby now. And guess what? Mill won't be anywhere near our child until she gets professional help. The weirdest part of all of this, she used to love me. I didn't mention it before, but for 2 years, Mill practically begged my fiancé to date me. She adored me, acted like I was the best thing that ever happened to him. But the moment we got engaged, something in her snapped. That's when her wheels started turning. She literally told mutual friends that she would be at our house every day once we were married and even suggested building an addition onto her house for us to live in. Oh, and both my ILs firmly believed that any future kids we had would be theirs. So yeah, she never actually wanted us to break up. She just wanted him to stay her little boy forever. I wasn't a threat when I was just the girlfriend. But once she realized I was his wife, that I came first in his life, she couldn't stand it. Update 1. The last time we saw my Mill and FIL was nearly 2 months ago when we invited them to meet us at a Dunkin' to talk. We had just found out we were expecting and wanted to test the waters again, just in case there was any change of heart. There was. If anything, they seemed more bitter and hateful than ever. They stormed out after barely 5 minutes, throwing a tantrum like toddlers. Naturally, we did not tell them about the baby. We decided that they didn't deserve to hear the news from us directly. They've treated us worse than they'd treat a stranger, so why should we extend them that courtesy? Our decision was simple: they'd find out through the grapevine. A few weeks later, we invited my husband's younger brother, who still lives at home, poor kid, over to our place to share the news. He was thrilled. He hugged us, grinning ear to ear, genuinely happy for us. We assumed he'd go home and tell his parents, but he didn't. That was interesting. He talks to his parents about things that excite him, but for some reason he chose not to mention our baby. It speaks volumes about how tense things must be at home for him. I digress. A week later, we told my husband's grandparents on his mom's side and his great-aunt in Florida. She had texted us to check in, and we ended up sharing the news. She was so happy for us. And here, where the petty side of me absolutely loved what happened next. My in-laws still didn't know because their youngest son and Mill's parents were too scared to say anything. But Mill's great-aunt, blissfully unaware of the family drama, texted my Mill, "Congratulations on being a grandma." And that is how my Mill found out. I know it's evil of me, but oh my gosh, it felt so satisfying. We found out because my husband's grandma texted him the next morning. Apparently Mill had told her, "I can't believe my son wouldn't give me that news himself." The entitlement. She literally told my husband just weeks ago that she was happier without him in her life, yet now she thinks she's owed an announcement about our baby. I can't even. That's all I have specifically about her, but there's another little story that left me flabbergasted. About a week ago, my husband and I went out to dinner with his grandpa on the other side, his dad's dad. We had a nice meal and ended up telling him the news. Turns out he had already heard through the grapevine. And I strongly suspect that my in-laws ran to him first, whining about how awful it was that their own son wouldn't personally tell them about the baby. At the end of the meal, my husband casually apologized for not telling him sooner, explaining that things had been busy and that the situation with his parents had made things harder. His grandpa immediately shut the conversation down, saying, "I want to stay out of it. I don't want to know anything." Fine, if you don't care enough to help, then stay out. But he didn't. A moment later, he leaned toward my husband and said, "But the Bible does say to respect your parents." We were stunned silent. This man, who claimed he didn't want to get involved, suddenly felt the need to lecture my husband about respecting the very people who had punched him and verbally abused us. The only way he would even know this was if my in-laws had got to him first. Their entire victim narrative is based on the claim that my husband disrespected them, which to them just means he didn't blindly obey their every demand. I let his words sit for a moment before calmly looking him in the eye and saying, "Well, the Bible also says not to punch people." I thought that would shock him. Nope. Instead, he responded, "Well, the Bible says to discipline your children." We were speechless. This man actually believed that my Mill was justified in physically attacking my grown fiancé because she was disciplining him. And the craziest part, she had literally told my husband before our wedding that she was punishing him. The fact that his grandfather shared this same twisted belief only reinforced what we had already decided: our baby will be kept far away from these people. The idea that grown children are simply pawns for their parents to control and discipline at will is apparently a generational mindset in this family. And Grandpa didn't even hear our side of the story. He just blindly supported his son and DIL because it benefited them. I need to vent about something else too. I don't want to bash Christians in general. I am a Christian. I've read the Bible cover to cover, and it absolutely disgusts me how many so-called Christians use it as a weapon to belittle, manipulate, and judge others. My Mill literally wrote Bible verses in our wedding card about obeying your parents and included one about cursed is the son who chases away his mother. Let me be clear, she weaponized scripture to justify her own toxicity. If these people actually read their Bibles, they'd know it explicitly says that when you get married, you are to leave your father and mother and cling to your spouse. It also teaches that as adults, we are to honor our parents, not obey them. Honor means treating them with kindness and respect, not blindly following their every command. But how can we honor people who scream at us, twist scripture to control us, and call us vile names? Talking about the Bible should be peaceful and uplifting, not something used to guilt and manipulate people. This is why we've stopped engaging when they start throwing Bible verses at us. There's a saying, a person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. We will never convince my Mill that her grown married son doesn't have to obey her. She has chosen to believe otherwise. And I will never convince Grandpa that punching your adult son is discipline. He believes it because it benefits him. At this point, I'm just done. Update 2, you're definitely not overreacting. Your Mill is playing classic narcissistic games, testing the waters, love bombing, and trying to manipulate the situation in her favor while completely ignoring the damage she's done. Everything about her behavior screams entitlement, not remorse. First, the baby book stunt. A woman who literally screamed at her son, told him she was happier without him, and spent the last year vilifying both of you suddenly thinks she's in a position to give parenting advice. The audacity. And the fact that she's even reading about newborns, big red flag. Your mom's observation that Mill once said she wanted a baby at age 45-46 is so unsettling, and honestly it tracks. She never wanted a daughter because she thrives in an environment where she's the sole woman being worshipped, and now that you're giving birth to a boy, her son's son, she probably sees this baby as her do-over. Then we have her reaction to learning your baby's gender. She whined that your husband didn't tell her himself. After everything she's done, Mill chose to blow up her relationship with her son, yet she still expects to be treated like a loving, supportive mother who deserves to hear every milestone first. The entitlement is unreal. And then the pie trap. Let's call it what it is, a lazy, manipulative attempt at pretending nothing ever happened. The moment she found out she was having a grandson, suddenly she wants to catch up and be cordial. But she explicitly said she didn't want to talk about the past. Translation: let's sweep my abuse under the rug and pretend we're a happy family again because now you're giving me access to a new baby. The fact that she phrased it as helping with a pie problem and threw in a smiley face is just icing on the manipulation cake. Your husband handled it perfectly by setting a firm boundary, group therapy or nothing. And what did she do? She immediately tried to weasel out of it, acting like he's the unreasonable one. Calling it a power grab is just laughable. Asking abusive parents to go to therapy with you isn't a power grab, it's the bare minimum required to even begin rebuilding trust. And then when your husband held his boundary and said they weren't ready, she immediately switched gears and tried to control the situation again. Oh, I'll go to counseling on my own, maybe our counselors can collaborate. That right there is why therapy won't work with them. It's all about optics for her. She doesn't want healing, accountability, or real conversations. She wants validation from a therapist who will tell her she's right and you two are the problem. And if that fails, she'll use therapy as a weapon against you later. The timing of all of this is what really seals it for me. She went months without reaching out to her son because she was happier without him. But the moment she learns she's getting a grandson, she suddenly has to insert herself again. And not just that, she's trying to be extra nice, throwing in smiley faces like you're all best friends. No, she's not reaching out because she cares, she's reaching out because she sees an opportunity to get what she wants. At the end of the day, she doesn't want reconciliation, she wants control. If she wanted to rebuild, she would start by acknowledging the damage she's done, apologizing, and asking what you two need in order to move forward. Instead, she's trying to manipulate, sidestep accountability, and guilt-trip your husband into compliance. She is not a safe person. You and your husband are 100% right to keep your baby far away from her. You know she'll push boundaries, ignore your rules, and act like she has some special claim to your child. She's already joked that your kids will be hers. She already tried to force her way back into your lives the moment she found out you were having a boy. I would bet everything that if you let her in, she'd start demanding alone time with the baby, undermining your parenting choices, and using every opportunity to insert herself as a third parent. Honestly, at this point, the best thing you can do is hold your boundaries hard. No baby shower invite, no unsupervised visits, and no access to your child until she genuinely does the work to prove she's capable of change. And frankly, given her track record, I highly doubt she ever will.